Hey, good Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for joining us for this big forecast that we've got going on across Florida, okay? The Gulf is very, very active. If you have not heard already, we have a Category 4 hurricane that is breaking records. Now, Milton is one of the strongest hurricanes that we've seen in the Atlantic Basin ever. So even before landfall, this monster of a storm has broken records. We're watching for many hazards across Florida over the next few days, including that flooding risk. We've already got flooding or the potential, the risk for flooding happening across Florida today as well as yesterday. And then of course, as this makes landfall tomorrow. And what the National Hurricane Center is saying here is that destruction is imminent. The wording that they used in some of their discussions today was very, very impressive. They say, this is what the National Hurricane Center said, okay? Potentially the most destructive hurricanes that we have seen in the West Central Florida area ever. So they are really wanting people to take this seriously. So we're going to get into your forecast here, but I do want you to go ahead and put your comments and your questions in the comments section. I'll be able to see those. They pop up on the side of the screen here. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know if we can answer any of those questions today. All right, first, let's start with what we saw yesterday. Yesterday's storm reports, very, very few and far between. I think we had one wind report farther off into the west. Other than that, we were very quiet across the U.S. yesterday. We had some rain down in Florida, but that's really it. Some rain up in the New England states as well, but other than that, across the U.S., we've stayed dry and above average for those temperatures. Rainfall totals here, which are not impressive right now, but actually very important to Florida in the grand scheme of things because they have been having that flooding risk down in the southern tip of Florida over the last 2-3 days here. And of course, that will continue as we head into the next 2 to 3 days with the landfall of Milton on Wednesday. Let's get right into your forecast here because you can see we're very quiet and dry other than just a few showers off to the west. Central U.S., very, very quiet with temperatures above average. Going up to our New England states, also pretty dry except for just a few showers and storms coming off of the Great Lakes. And there is where all of that activity is happening. You can actually see some of the most northern rain bands starting to impact Florida right now. Off to the west, still pretty dry here. Temperatures are in the 70s. I walked outside earlier and I said, oh, I think I need a light jacket. Now that was earlier this morning. We're in the 70s now. 76, a great day to sit on the patio and watch our forecast during lunchtime. 75 out in Chandler right now. Heading down to Dallas, we're at 74 in Dallas. So a nice fall-like day, or at least fall-like early afternoon across the plains. You can see that we do have that unstable air. Where? In Florida. We are not watching for storms across the rest of the U.S. You are severe clear for now. But we're watching for those storms down in Florida, mainly the southern tip today, but we are watching for more of that central west side of Florida for tomorrow. Significant hail model, we talk about this every time there's a hurricane. We don't see hail with hurricanes, so we are not watching for any hail today. Actually, I think we may not have the graphic up here. I may have just taken it out of the forecast today, but oftentimes with this, I stick our hail forecast up here and I put no significant hail expected, which means quarter size or less. And honestly, I think it would be no hail for today. Taking a look at the radar here, a few showers and storms, nothing severe across our New England states into New York and Pennsylvania for today. That'll wrap up later on this evening. There's that graphic. No significant hail expected today. I think I could take out that word significant. I think I could just say no hail expected today. So let's get right into, I may skip a few graphics here. Nope, we're going to get right into the hurricane here because that's what everyone has been keeping their eye on. These are your spaghetti plots. Each one of these lines are a different model that tells where this hurricane is expected to go. You can tell right now we've got a lot of consistency with these lines going right into west central side of Florida, mainly near Tampa, okay? Now, just a few miles of north, maybe to the south, could change the impacts along this area pretty significantly. So it's really important if you live in this area, if you're headed down to this area, if you're doing any reconstruction, excuse me, I'm gonna grab a drink of water here. Thank you. Oh, you gotta love live TV, right? I talked so fast, I was so excited to give you these updates. I need a drink of water. All right, so if you're in this area, if you have any plans to travel to this area after the hurricane, it's really important to make sure that you are keeping an eye on the forecast all the way through landfall and even after landfall, because this could change very, very quickly, just depending on if we pivot to the north or to the south by a little bit. All right, taking a look at your tropical tracker here, we have a Category 4 hurricane right now. You can see this is a monster of a storm, and it is expected to get even bigger as it grows. As it goes towards Florida, it will grow as well. Cat 4 right now, sustained wind speeds 150 miles an hour. Now it is expected to weaken as we get to Florida. However, will it weaken? Now that's what the models are saying right now, but the models also said earlier, 2 days ago, that it was going to be a Cat 2. And what did we get? A Cat 5. So I want you to once again check back for forecast updates, because this could change. Even though we say the word weakening here, that doesn't mean it's a weak storm. It's still a major hurricane making landfall right in that Tampa Bay area. Now, one of the most significant things I see about this hurricane is that it sustains those hurricane wind speeds even through the peninsula, through the central portion of Florida, even to the east coast here. Holy moly, it sustains those wind speeds to a Cat 1 or Cat 2 wind speeds. Really, really impressive here. Another thing about this storm is in this area, the Great Bend area here, we just had a hurricane 2 weeks ago. There is tons of damage still in this area, debris left over from that storm that is now loose, right? These winds are gonna blow that around a lot easier than if it was connected to a house, right? But now it's debris, it's on the ground. That's gonna blow around, and that's gonna travel very, very long distances. So places that would not have had flying objects are now going to have flying objects. That's just another factor in this very, very complicated storm that we see, complex storm. Just a little reminder here, Cat 3 winds are anywhere from 111 to 129 miles per hour. Most likely, if we do get a Cat 3 out of Milton, we are going to see a stronger Cat 3, closer to 120 miles an hour. But we could easily get a Cat 4 out of this. That's what we have right now, 130 to 156 miles per hour. Right now we have a strong Cat 4. And just a reminder, Cat 5, of course, even more damaging impacts here, 157 miles per hour or even stronger. We actually recorded 180 miles per hour from this storm already. Well, that is just absolutely fascinating. Breaking records for the Atlantic Basin here. Alrighty, let's take a look at wind shear. Just a reminder here, low wind shear means good chance for intensification. High wind shear means low chance for intensification. Where is Milton right now? Right about here, right? Look what it's going through. Low to moderate wind shear right here. So could we see some weakening? That's definitely possible. Now, if we take a little bit more of a northern track with this, I think we could see more weakening than if we take that southern track. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. We'll have to watch that here. What about those sea surface temperatures? Our buoys are not reading out here, but we've got 80s down farther to the south. We did have mid 80s, like 85 here yesterday. So we've got some warm waters just off the coast of Florida as well. Remember, the warmer the waters, the more likely we are to see intensification. It takes all of that warm water, it uses it as fuel to strengthen the hurricane. Now, if you watched my forecast yesterday, you know why we don't have any data popping up here. I think that's because your storm surge here is actually off of our charts. I mean, it's greater than our legend right here. We have 9 feet in storm surge, but take a look what the National Hurricane Center has, up to 15 feet in storm surge. That's about 3 times the size of the average person. So this is an extremely dangerous situation coming right into Tampa here. Going to the north of Tampa just a little bit, 5 to 10 feet in storm surge. Around the Great Bend of Florida, 1 to 3 feet to 3 to 5 feet. in max storm surge. Farther down to the south, I mean, as far south as Miami, even kind of getting onto the east coast or the southern tip of Florida here, we are also watching for storm surge 1 to 3 feet in size. And then we can also see 3 to 5 feet on the east side of Florida. I mean, so this is going to impact almost the entire state. I read a stat the other day that the evacuations in this area are the largest widespread evacuations that we've seen in over 12 years. So this is impacting a lot of people. Just a quick reminder about your storm surge here. Once again, our levels don't even go up to 15 feet. We've got 12 plus feet here, which is most likely to get into the second story of a house. So most houses could be flooded just along the coast, could be flooded up through that first story here. So very, very impactful. Let's take a look at your watches and warnings. Tropical storm warning farther down to the southern tip of Florida here. Tropical storm warning. Your hurricane warnings goes not only through the west side of Florida, but also into the east side. As we mentioned earlier, one of the most impressive things about this storm is how it is sustaining that strong, intense, extreme wind speed all the way through the peninsula here onto the east side of Florida. So that is something to keep in mind. You cannot say, oh no, I'm farther inland, I'll be okay. Make sure that you are also taking your precautions as the storm makes its way across the state. As you head a little bit farther to the north, we're not expecting as strong wind speeds, still pretty strong. Tropical storm watches are in effect anywhere from Georgia all the way up to South Carolina. Alrighty, moving right along here, let's take a look at some of those other impacts that we talk about. We talked about wind speed, we talked about storm surge. Now I'm going to talk about flooding and that tornado risk. So some of the outer bands of this storm are already impacting the southern tip of Florida here. You can kind of see part of that circulation farther down to the south of the screen where the radar cuts off, and we'll see a little bit more of it as we go into the next few hours here. But what we're watching for some of these outer bands is that flooding potential to begin, and we're also watching for that tornado threat. So here's a look at today's tornado forecast. It's a level 1, a low risk, but still something to watch out for. A handful of tornadoes are possible anywhere from just north of Fort Myers all the way down to Miami and into the Florida Keys. Taking a look at tomorrow's risk, that tomorrow's tornado forecast here. Maybe. You're seeing I'm clicking the button. Okay, there we go. That risk goes up to a level 2, a moderate risk, highlighted here in yellow, anywhere from Miami to Fort Myers, now including Tampa. So those outer bands are going to be the first thing that we watch for that tornado threat. That means that you need to have your alerts. If you are in this area, 3 different ways to get alerts. Make sure that you charge all of those devices that you're using to get alerts. Most of these hurricane-related tornadoes are going to spin up fast, and you won't have a ton of warning time with them. I know we've already gotten reports of land spouts, so we're already starting to see that convection happening today. A level 1, a little bit farther to the north of Tampa here, that low risk highlighted in green. Alrighty, we're going to talk about the rain chances now. One thing that I want to note outside of Florida is look at the rest of the U.S. We're very dry, and I want to make sure that we are talking about that because that's going to lead to fire, potential fire dangers as we head into the next week or two, because we're going to stay pretty dry over the next 5 days. And I don't want to not talk about that because we do have so much going on in Florida. I do want to recognize that as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the forecast. We have a few showers and storms that are going to be going on anywhere from the Midwest all the way through our New England states. But of course, what we're really watching for is that flooding risk down in Florida. We've broken it down for you day by day. As we've talked about today, one of the biggest risks is that southern tip of Florida still getting rain. It's gotten rain like every single day for the past 2 weeks, still causing some flooding issues through here. Tomorrow, big rain day. We're expecting flooding anywhere from Tampa all the way down to the southern tip here. This is when Milton makes landfall later on in the day. Okay, this is going to be a late day, overnight type of system. By Thursday, we're wrapping up the rain bands as it moves off to the east, but it's still causing a lot of flooding. Now kind of shifting that risk from the south farther up to the north And finally, by Friday, we get a little bit of a break. We start to dry off by this weekend. But of course, at that point, we just start to go into recovery mode. That is whenever we'll be doing, and thankfully it's not raining during this time, because that's, of course, whenever there will be so much recovery and then restoration going on across the state. This is gonna be, we talk about this being a disaster on top of a disaster, because we had Helene and now we have Milton. And we wanna make sure that we recognize that for everyone down in Florida and a lot of our southeastern states. But I do wanna move on here because I want to get to the rest of the forecast. I know you've got your lunch to get to. Over the next 5 to 10 days, we're looking at a very, very dry U.S. Other than Florida, we are going to stay dry, just like I showed you earlier, the next 5 days, not getting any significant rain across the U.S., very similar as we head into the middle of October. Anywhere from Houston all the way up to Minneapolis, you have a high chance to stay below average for those rainfall totals. Talking temperatures now, I mentioned that not only is it going to be dry, but also hot, contributing to that fire risk over the next few weeks. This is something that's going to sustain long-term impacts. We may not see that fire risk now, but we may see that later in October, maybe November. It depends on how long we stay dry. Taking a look at those temperatures, we're in the 80s here in Oklahoma City, 87 in Dallas. That's above average. It's a little bit of a cool down from what we have been seeing, but that's above average for this time of year. I mean, like way above average. I have your averages on here in a minute. I'll show you that. Upper 80s, low 90s by Thursday. Take a look at places like Phoenix and into the southern portion of California. Those temperatures are way above average, almost record-breaking down there. And we even have the 80s extending all the way up into places like Bismarck, North Dakota, 82 in Minneapolis, 70s down in St. Louis. Temperatures will stay above average as we head into the middle of October, so we are not done with that quite yet. We are probably going to see this trend last all the way through at least the 17th of this month. Okay, really good chance. Here's how you read this map. I know you see this all over social media. Here's how you read it. We have a really good chance of being above normal for your temperatures. I have your average temperature on here. 68 in Denver, 77 in Oklahoma City, 68 in Chicago. These are your averages for this time of the year. So you have a significant chance to be above average in Denver, pretty good chance in Oklahoma City. And then as we get into the middle of the month, temperatures start to go back right about average in Chicago. So we had so much to talk about today. We are going to do more updates on our social media for Milton. This is not the only update that we have. We actually have CEO Derek Klein in Florida right now. He left very early this morning and he is landing in Tallahassee. He's probably already landed. If not, he's landing very, very soon. He'll of course be giving us updates. He's going to drive through the damage of Helene, and then he's going to head down to Tampa and he's going to let us know what he's seeing from Milton over the next 24 to 48 hours. So we have eyes on the ground. We'll be posting all of that video on our social media, so make sure that you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And if you're looking for any of those tornado, wind, or hail maps, we have a meteorologist on staff 24/7. They're actually mapping those, or watching those water spouts as we are talking right now. Okay, they're watching it for us. So they're mapping anything that happens over the next 48 hours. You can get those maps if you call 855-334-4245. or email us at info@hailtrace.com. Head over to our website, hailtrace.com. We're going to even have more weather info on there. If you're a weather enthusiast like we are, we're going to have tons of info on our blog, so you may check that out. That may be pretty interesting to you. Alrighty, thanks for joining us on this Tuesday. We'll have more updates on our social media, but we have a noon forecast every day, so we'll see you back here, same time, same place tomorrow.